you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
Are you cold?
I am a little cold.
It's snowing here.
I know, eh? And if I'm cold, it's cold because you know me. I like it cold.
I know you do.
But you know what though? It's an excuse to wear this amazing jacket that we got while we were over in Ireland for the Friendship 4 and in Belfast, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. And it is time, Pierre, for our first on-campus Friday back in North America since we did go on our amazing trip overseas, and we're happy to be back. And we're going to get right into it right now with the head coach of Northeastern men's hockey, Jerry Keefe, joining us here on the Eye Test. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Great. How's everything going over there at Matthews Arena?
Going well.
Nice.
Got a good group. We're getting excited for two big games this weekend. So
2 at home.
Jimmy, what's amazing is Coach is coaching in this unbelievable building called Matthews Arena. It's in its last year. How emotional, how sentimental, what does it mean to you to be running the team basically in its last year, Jerry?
Well, you know what? We are going to be playing there next year as well. So that's one thing we did find out. But it is exciting. I mean, it's the oldest building in the world, right? So there's so much tradition, whether it's, the Bruins playing here, the Celtics playing here. That's where the parquet floor originated. They've had presidents come in here and speak, and boxing matches. And so you walk in every day, and it's pretty neat because you're in a historic building, and you appreciate that.
How about how loud it gets in there, Coach? I know that's one of the more louder barns in college hockey.
Yeah, our student fans called the Doghouse. They're amazing. They sit right up on top in the balcony, right above the visiting team goalie for 2 periods, and it's fun playing there. We played Boston College a few weeks ago, sold out crowd, and it was an unbelievable atmosphere.
Yeah,
Hockey East is just a juggernaut, and every single game you play, we saw it last night. UConn takes BC to overtime, and eventually BC prevails. And UConn's already beaten them. Can you describe from when you played at Providence to where Hockey East now is, how difficult it's become?
Yeah, I think when I played in the league, there was definitely a top 4 teams that separated almost every year. I feel like now if you don't show up against any opponent and play your best, there's a good chance you're not winning in our league. And the other thing that makes Hockey East, I think so strong is the goaltending has been really good over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You see a lot of NHL goalies now that came out of Hockey East, and every team's built a little bit different too. Obviously when you're preparing to play a team like Boston College, who's, faster, more skilled transition team. And then all of a sudden you got to get ready for a different opponent like a UMass Amherst or a Providence College or a Maine that play more of a structured, heavier game. So everybody brings a little bit different. That's what makes it fun, your preparation each week.
You mentioned the goalies there, and I was watching last night. I don't know who the announcer was on the Bruins game. Mentioned all 3 goalies for 4 nations are Hockey East alums.
Yeah,
which is pretty amazing.
You got three of them for Team USA: Hellebuck, Ottinger, and Swayman.
Yeah, USA, it's unreal.
3 Hockey East goalies right there.
Yeah. Coach, I want to get into just a little about you and sort of your background in coaching, how you got into coaching. Who were some of your mentors? I know you played for the great Marty Pierce at Matignon back in the day with my good friend Chris Masters, and I know what a great coach he was. Just talk to us about how sort of that evolved. You were a great player, but how did you transition into coaching?
Yeah, so I was always a rink rat. If you guys remember old Hockey Night in Boston when they used to have it at Stone.
I coached in that. I left some of my hair over there.
Yeah. My dad always worked on Saturday mornings, like a second job to kind of help pay for my hockey. And when I was like 10, 11 years old, my mother would drop me off there at, 11 in the morning. And I would stay for the 11 o'clock game, the 1 o'clock game, the 3 o'clock game. Then my dad would come in at 5 o'clock and we would watch the 5 and the big matinee game or the big game at 7 o'clock. And, the best part about Hockey Night in Boston was the books that they gave, right? So I just love being there, right? And I'd know every player. I mean, I was probably 10, 11 years old. I'm looking at prep school guys and looking up to them, thinking that they were superstars. And so I think I always loved being in the rink. I loved watching hockey. I always knew when I was done playing, I wanted to coach. Easier said than done because there's only so many jobs, right? So I've been fortunate. And I think part of that too, like you said, going back to, starting out in high school with Marty Pierce, who's just a tremendous human being, first of all, an unbelievable hockey coach, but a guy that you looked up to. And then I've been fortunate, my junior coach was Mike Hastings. I played 2 years for Hasty in Omaha and learned a ton from him. What a great coach he is. And then went on to Providence and played for Paul Pooley, who is Coach Pooley is one of the smartest X's and O's guys I've ever been around. So I learned so much from him. I took a lot from what I learned from him as a player into coaching. So it's just being around a lot of really good people and learning from them, and just really fortunate to have the opportunity that I do.
Coach, was there one player that stood out when you were watching all those games at Hockey Night in Bosch? You say, wow, I knew this guy was going to be this good?
Well, there's a lot, but I would say, watching Keith Tkachuk when he was playing, Tommy Fitzgerald, guys like that. I grew up in Billerica, so I knew Mr. Fitz was my coach, Tommy's dad, growing up. So I always liked watching Tommy play. One of the reasons why I ended up at Providence College. I used to go down there and watch Tommy when he played there. So.
Hey, Jimmy, before you ask your next question, I'm going to say my player. I remember watching and coaching against the great John LeClaire.
Oh, wow.
And he was, in that event in particular, that put him on the map. Because at that time, and Coach knows, you had University of Vermont. Yeah, they were really good. But the state of Vermont wasn't producing a ton of players. But they did produce this one guy, and he was really good, Jimmy. He was really good.
I imagine. Hey, Coach, we were just mentioning before you came on, we just got back from Belfast. We were over there for the Friendship Four, and, of course, doing a lot of work with the Belfast Giants. I noticed reading your bio, you spent a season over there. What was that experience like for you?
Unbelievable. What a great place to play. It was the first year that they had a team. So the excitement about it was unreal. Nobody really knew anything about hockey, but they just loved going to the games and getting to know the players. And the fan base was incredible. We got treated really well over there. So that was an awesome experience.
It's actually their 25th anniversary this year. They just celebrated it. Yeah. So
it is amazing that it's 25 years, and it's just going to keep growing, Coach. It's unbelievable where it's at right now.
I'll always be the first American-born player to play there. So
there you go.
I was the only American on the team, actually. We had all Canadians. Our owner was Canadian. Our coaches were Canadian. And then I was the lone American on the team.
And when you were there, it was a much different culture, obviously. I mean, they've progressed so much from the Troubles there. So you got to see what it was like, too. That's an interesting experience.
Was Owen Nolan part of the ownership group when you were there?
Not when I was there, no.
When you think about your career in particular and coming from Providence, and you had to slug it out to get to a paycheck in hockey, do you talk to your players about that?
Not so much about my path as a player, but just talk about how hard it is to be a pro, right? And all our guys come in here, and we want players that want to be pros, right? Those are the type of kids you want to recruit. But it's hard. And you look at some of the guys that have made it, at Northeastern. They're not first round NHL draft picks per se. They're the third, fourth, sixth, seventh undrafted players, and those kids they're so determined to get there. And that's what we like to just preach habits and just what it takes to be a pro. That's the biggest thing with our message.
Hey, Jimmy, one of my favorites, and I was part of Ottawa when we picked him up, was Adam Gaudette. And Coach worked with him. He's a Hobey Baker winner. He's the leading goal scorer for the Ottawa Senators right now. And I can tell you right now, for any young kid watching, just see how determined Adam Gaudette was and still is to be a player. It's the coach's message. It's unbelievable how determined he was to be a real player in the NHL.
Yeah, just sticking on that too, Pierre. We actually brought up Adam. We showed a clip of Adam scoring a goal last week, and it's not a goal that he's toe-dragging anybody. But the message to our guys was Adam Gaudette, when he steps into the offensive zone, he expects every puck to come to him, whether someone passes it to him, whether it hits someone's skate, whether the goalie kicks it out to his stick. I've never seen Adam Gaudette surprised by a puck, ever. And he's always down, he's always ready, and he expects the puck to be on his stick, and he's ready to shoot when he gets it. So, but those are habits that he had throughout every day in practice. He didn't just turn it on in the game. Every single time he did a rep in practice, he expected the puck to come to him. So you can see why he's such a good goal scorer.
Jimmy, who I had that was like that? Guys in the Hall of Fame, Joey Mullen. I must have passed Joey thousands of pucks. And the coach just said, he expected that puck. No, it didn't matter if it was in his feet, it was by his head. It didn't matter. He's going to score. He practiced scoring every day. To Coach's point, I totally agree with that.
Coach, obviously a couple weeks ago, you guys had a huge win over Boston College at home. They're at Matthews Arena a night after you lost them at Conte Forum. My question on that, though, is coming out of that game, what was your message to the team to obviously, build off that momentum, build off the good things you did, but not get too high and continue to sort of ride the wave?
Yeah, it's more just learning how we won the game. We had played some pretty good games this year against good opponents that we played well.
Up in Maine, right?
But, there was reasons why we didn't win, or we tied the game, or, wanted a shootout instead of winning regulation. So I thought, our 60-minute effort in that game, and I thought we checked. We talk about checking for offense. That's a big thing that we talk about here. And I thought we did that night. So anytime you can beat a really good team, you can always go back to that. How did we do that? And for us, disappointing. I didn't think we necessarily brought that into our game against Bentley. I don't know if it was just a different type of opponent because they played differently than Boston College did, but I give Bentley a lot of credit. They're a good hockey team. They played well against us here. We were fortunate to get the win. We'll take the win. Cameron Whitehead was excellent that night. But, now it's just about building. We talked about going into the year just really focusing on learning from the last game and then just moving right on to the next game. So that's going to continue to be the message. We've got a huge game, obviously, Friday night against UNH tomorrow night.
Lots of coaches have to go through the holiday break. So you just went through the Thanksgiving Day break. You talked about, even though your team was on campus, you talked about they didn't respond the way you want them to on Sunday. Now you got some games before you head into the Christmas break. I know what I did when I was coaching, and maybe you can't do those things today. So I'm wondering what your approach will be when you coach going into the break and then during the break. What do you expect from your players?
Yeah, well, again, we have 3 games before break, and they are huge games for us. All 3 are at home. So it's focusing on each game. I do like the fact that we're in exams right now, which is amazing to me that college is so different than it was when I was playing, because some guys don't have exams. Amazing to me. So they're actually they've got probably an easier schedule right now where they can probably focus on a little bit more of hockey right now, which I know they like to do. So it's just they'll be down the rink all the time, just keeping guys focused, and then getting into the break, it's more you want to go reset, get yourself ready to come back right away out of break and get on a roll in the second half. That's the key. But finishing off the right way here is really important for our group right now.
Coach, you mentioned Whitehead there. For those that aren't familiar with him, just talk to us about the style he brings and what he's meant to your team.
Yeah, he gives us a chance every night, Whitey. He's a big kid. He's athletic. Brian Mahoney-Wilson, our goaltending coach, has done an awesome job with Whitey. They got a great relationship. He's a really focused kid. Having Devin Levi here before Whitey, who is one of the most focused kids I've ever been around, I'll tell you what, Whitey's right there with him. His preparation is off the charts. So he puts the time in. All week he's preparing for the next opponent. Development's really big with him, and it shows, because I thought even last year, I've said it before, I thought Whitey got better every single week that he was here last year. So that's a credit to him.
Jimmy, just so we know, he's a 4th-round pick of the Vegas Golden Knights, and I know that they're really, really excited about where his game is right now. And Coach talked about the influence of the goaltender coach there, Mahoney Wilson. He's done a real good job. That guy used to work for the Detroit Red Wings, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And it speaks to what I've been talking about, interviewing coaches like Coach Keefe. I don't think people realize the professionalism of the coaching staffs in Hockey East right now. It is super high end, Jimmy. It's amazingly high end.
Yeah. Coach, we were talking, obviously with the advent now, the NCAA and the CHL and that whole agreement there. Pierre's come up with a great idea. He said a couple times here, just how important it is now to have dedicated staff to that, to recruiting different leagues and that. How much have you guys discussed that as a coaching staff, and how more active are you going to get in terms of that right now?
Yeah, it's a great point. We've discussed it a lot, especially recently. Mike Levine was just up in the OHL, saw 6 games this past weekend. And Matt Harlow and Coach Levine are driving up to Moncton after the game on Saturday night to see a game on Sunday. So, yeah, the CHL is going to be a big thing for us. And we're trying to get to know the league. You got to make contacts up there, get to know the coaches, the advisors. The other thing is you just can't get too spread out, and meaning you got to put your focus on certain areas that you can recruit from. We've always been really good in Quebec. We don't want to change that. Quebec's going to be a big area for us. So now getting into Ontario is going to be a big part, and obviously the United States Hockey League is a big part for us. Those are going to be our 3 focuses.
That is such a good point. This is where I think teams will get into trouble. They'll be too spread out. And I think you got to be an expert in your area, and Coach just nailed it. And I didn't rehearse this with him at all, but Jimmy Madigan is such a valuable resource at Northeastern, and Coach worked for him. You can control from Kingston to Halifax if you're Northeastern, and north up to Rouyn-Noranda. And if you do that, you're going to get a lot of good players.
Yep.
I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad you brought up Jimmy Madigan, Pierre. Coach, I got to know Jimmy when he was a scout with Pittsburgh way back. And I'm wondering, are you able to draw on the scout Jimmy Madigan, not just the AD? Are you able to talk to him about that and kind of gather his experience from that?
Yeah. You know what? Jim, in his role as the athletic director, can only do so much with the NCAA rules. With that being said, I talked to Coach Madigan constantly, and I was on the phone with him last night for half an hour.
Awesome.
We were talking about players, asking me about some of the players that Coach Levine just saw up there, and so he's still really, really dialed in. And I love talking to him after games, because we don't. It's like we didn't miss a beat, right? We worked together for 10 years, and what he's telling me about what he thought he saw in the game is exactly how it was when we coached together. So I love talking to him still. I wish I talked to him even more, but I know he's so busy. But what a mentor for me, just a tremendous person. I couldn't have, asked for a better boss for these last 14 years that I've been here.
I've never told Coach Keefe this story about Jimmy Madigan, but he and I grew up playing against each other in Montreal, and we'll decide who was better, who wasn't, but down the road. But when we were first young coaches in the league, I was at Babson, and he was at Northeastern working for Fernie Flamin and Donnie McKenney. I think you'll like this, Jerry. And we had a family, the Bokovich family, that owned a car dealership on the South Shore, so they gave us a recruiting vehicle. And it said Babson Hockey on the side. And Jimmy would always jump in because I'd be working in Ontario or Montreal trying to get players. So one day we drove up, and the truck broke down right near Hawkesbury in Ontario. You know it well, on the way to Ottawa. And there's flat and there's no trees and it's cold. But we got it fixed. And then driving back, he says, "You're bad luck. I'm driving the car." So I said, "Okay, you can drive the car." And we're pulling into the border in Swanton, Vermont. I'll never forget it. And Jimmy had a heavy foot, and he got pulled over by the police, by the Quebec provincial police. I said, after he got the ticket, I said, "Who's the bad luck?"
I have a meeting at 10 o'clock with him today, and I'm going to bring that story up.
You can, and that's if you ever paid the ticket.
Hey, quick, I know you're tight on time. Before we let you go here, Coach, obviously a certain podcast host's son is a player on your team there, Ryan McGuire. And, I've watched Ryan play, and I think we can all agree one of his strong points is face-offs. how much has his ability at the dot helped your team? And also, just in general, how much do you stress to the younger kids coming in to your roster how important faceoffs can be? Because I think sometimes it gets lost in translation when we talk about hockey games or we're breaking down games.
It is so important. Ryan, I'll tell you what, going back to the last overtime game that we played, I think he might have taken 7 faceoffs in overtime for us, and he was 7 for 7.
Wow.
And it showed how important that was because we had possession the entire overtime because of it. It's such a big part of the game. And you know what? Every player has to be, you have that identity as a player. And when you have that one asset that you're just that good at, you can make money at this game because of that, right? And Ryan does a lot of other good things, obviously, than just faceoffs. But it's a huge asset to have as a coach because even when you're, with your PK, you can change things around a little bit to get guys out there, on a line change and be able to save a guy like Ryan because a big faceoffs are eventually coming up. He's you can tell he's a coach's son. He's just a tremendous guy. He wore an A for us earlier in the year for a reason as a first-year guy coming in here, and he's an unbelievable locker room guy. The guys absolutely love him. And he's going to be he is a huge key for us. But even moving forward, if we want to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish, Ryan McGuire is going to have a big say in that for us this year.
Okay, you're too nice. Stop. You're too nice. I'll start talking about Owen, his son, who I trained all summer. But no, we're great. Jimmy, I'm just going to say this. We never rehearse this show. Our family is so grateful that Ryan's playing for Coach Keefe at Northeastern. We're really, really grateful. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate you joining us. Good luck, and we'll see you around the rink, all right?
It was great seeing you both.
Can I have an extra ticket for Friday night?
Absolutely. Anything you need.
And, hey, Coach, tell Jimmy Madigan we say hello.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
All right. That's head coach Jerry Keefe, Northeastern men's hockey. I remember him when he was a very, I'm going to put it this way, Pierre, a rambunctious player out there for Mackinac High, but he always had that sense, and you could tell. I love what he said. It reminded me a bit of you, actually, Pierre, just like what a rink rat he is and how much that's helped him throughout his career.
Well, I'll just say this about him. Ryan had a lot of offers when he went in the portal, and it was pretty easy for him when he went to Northeastern, and it was just he and Coach Keefe talking, and Ryan just grabbed my wife, his mother, and me and said, I'm coming here because of him. And the school, obviously, and the tradition. And what you see is what you get with Coach Keefe. There's no nonsense.
And that's
and I'm prepared I'll share this with everybody. Jimmy knows the story, and he's been kind enough not to say it. Ryan's a coach's kid, like Coach Keefe said. Mm-hmm. And before the New Hampshire weekend, 3 weeks ago, Ryan was late for a lift because he thought the schedule said 2:10, but it said 12:10. And so he was at the rink working on his sticks rather than being in the weight room with his teammates because he thought it was later rather than earlier. And Coach Keefe didn't yell and scream at him. He just brought him his office, said, you're sitting out the first period of the game. You're going to play, but you're sitting out the first period. Jimmy, you were at the game.
Yep, I was there.
And I had so many people, and you were there. You saw people coming around. Aren't you mad? Aren't you upset? Absolutely not. I totally endorse what the coach is doing.
Yeah.
The coach is right.
Yep.
Ryan didn't get to the event. He should sit. There should be a punishment. It's just not roll it over and let him play.
Yeah.
There's got to be a consequence. And so when he did that, a lot of people asked me, like, you must be mad at him. No, actually, I'm happy that he did that. I'm thrilled that he did that.
Like a man, too. And that's I was very impressed with that, too.
Yeah, no, but that's all part of it, too. But hopefully he learned that from his mom. There are consequences when you do something wrong. And so I was and this is not a recruiting thing for Northeastern. You know how much Greg Carville means to me. You know how much I respect Rand Peckhold. You know what I think of Ben Barr. Like, these are all tremendous coaches. But what I know about Coach Keefe is if you don't stick by the rules, you're probably going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you know that going in, I think it's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, especially and Pierre, I just quickly, and not to kind of veer away from college,
Right.
But, how important is it to you when you see pro coaches do that? Because now you're dealing with older, full grown men, guys that are making millions of dollars. But I'm sure you agree with me. There still needs to be standards. There has to be. You're done if there's not.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, a very fair point. I'm going to go to the Bowman School of Higher Learning on this one. Dougie Riseborough and Doug Jarvis and those guys had rules for them, the depth players that were important to the well-being of the team. But you knew there was always a little extra room for Serge Savard, or there was a little extra room for Guy Lapointe, or there was a little extra room for Guy Lafleur, or a little extra room for Steve Shutt. So Scotty could figure out his room, and he knew, if I can't crack on this guy in this, because I know I'm going to have to crack on him all the time. But I'm going to let him know this is not how we win here.
Yeah.
And so you got to be careful when you're creating those rules or those standards. There's certain standards everybody has to live by, but there's some that guys can't get extended. You're talking in pro hockey. I'm talking about in pro hockey, because it's different. There are guys that break games open, and if you sit them out and you're playing in a game 6 in a playoff game, you're like, I'm not going to give you the names, but I know a lot of guys that have been a little late for curfew sometimes, and they've been important to the well-being of the team going forward. And guess what? They didn't miss the game and the team won. So you got to be careful on that too. You got to be smart.
Hey, Pierre, before we wrap it up here, looking ahead to the weekend games here, as Coach mentioned, you've got 2 games you'll be at with Ryan and Northeastern there. But just looking around right now, any big games catching your eye this weekend?
Well,
because I was just looking and there's not too many.
But you heard that's why I'm saying you heard what Coach said. It's exam period. So teams are really careful with their scheduling in advance.
Yeah.
I just know what's going on just in my house. A lot of big economic mathematic papers that have to be done, and they got to be done. There's no standard on that. You either get it in or you don't.
Yep.
You get it in, you have a chance to pass. You don't get it in, you're going to fail. Then you might be ineligible. So I think that's an important part of this whole thing. Very important.
Is it he mentioned too, he's got these games, you want to kind of go off on a good note into the break. How important is that as well before the break?
Especially, Jimmy, you and I have talked about it. We haven't really talked about it on the podcast. We've talked about it off the air. They had a really tough schedule. Like if you look at their schedule, they started playing Denver on the road, number 1 in the country. Then they played Maine, always a top 5 team in the country. Then they've got Providence. Then they had Providence.
Yep.
They beat them at Providence and then lost in overtime. Like you start looking at their record. Then they have UNH, and then they have BC. Like you look, their first series of games, they're all against top 10 teams or top 15 teams in the country.
Yep.
So you get behind the 8 ball a little bit, which is what he was talking about. So every game now is important, and the second half is going to be a drag race because everybody knows it's not just games.
Yep.
It's the bean pot too.
Yep. The bean pot.
And they already know they're playing BC in the first game of the bean pot. And that's not any, like, I don't care how good your team is. BC could beat any team in the country, any team in the country. And, I'm going to say it again, cause I mean it. Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault are NHL players right now. When they leave, whenever they choose to leave BC, they're playing in the NHL.
Yeah.
They're not playing in the American League. They're playing in the NHL. And they're not the only ones over there. There are other guys that are real good players over there.
Well, I want to remind everyone too, you might have noticed we're not doing anything in the comment section because this was pre-recorded yesterday. So no Q&A today, but I do want to mention our wonderful sponsor, Betway. Of course, you can go right now. They are running a great deal. You will get $200 credit for the first bet you lose. Now, remember, this is for new signees only. You go over there right now, you sign up with that QR code, and even if you lose, you will get $200 credit. So go to Betway right now. Remember, you must be 18 plus and always bet responsibly. Pierre, this week flew by. I'm still kind of like in that, am I in North America? Am I in Europe? I'm starting to feel back to normal here, but it flew by. What a ball it was. And again, I know not to keep harping on it, but pun intended, the Heart Bar, the Harry Lemon, the Belfast Giants, Cara Group Travel, Odyssey Trust, all those people that really made it such a special trip for us. And of course, all the people we met and the lessons we learned over there about the culture and their passion for the game. It's going to stick with us forever.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just so grateful we've been invited back. Number one. Number two, look what it's parlayed itself into. And we'll have breaking news on that as we go forward. But it looks like, the eye test is going to have a significant presence at the Four Nations event in Montreal and also in Boston. And we're excited to break that news when everything's tidied up.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll be able to meet a lot more fans. We met so many fans over. It was amazing. Huh, Jimmy, when we were in Ireland?
Yeah, it really was cool.
It was
what Jerry Keefe just said about his experience there, and that was 25 years ago.
And that was a way different time. The hotel we stayed at, that beautiful Marriott, that wasn't there then.
That wasn't there.
None of those buildings along the river were
that high-end building that you loved, the architecture one. That wasn't there.
The one that was there that I think is the most beautiful building, if you're around Belfast right now, the Customs House right by the river where they had the big Christmas tree inside, Jimmy, with those huge gigantic windows. That's beautiful. What a building that is. Right near the clock tower. It's a spectacular building.
So I can't wait to get back there. But until then, he is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. You have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you here on Monday on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.